So we're going to talk about a total of 10 innovations in the watch industry. First 5 are going to be classical, the second 5 are going to be a bit more modern. Any list of innovation can be started right off with Rolex, and I know Rolex gets a lot of attention in general, but in 1926 they came out with the Oyster Case, which is the first water-resistant or waterproof case in watches. It opened up the future for a lot of different types of school watches, diving equipment in general, but to me the more important part is it opened the future for movement finishing for the sake of movement finishing. It's decoration for decoration's sake, whereas in the past, cases were only dust resistant. And I think that's a lesser seen side effect of the water resistant case. Another classic example of innovation is the JLC Reverso in general. In 1931, JLC came out with a reversible watch case. You know, the watch was affixed to your wrist with the strap, and you were able to turn the watch around on a hinge, on a pivot, to protect the crystal and protect the watch in general, and you'd be left with just a steel case back that is significantly more robust than that with a crystal. Another big innovation, 1972, Audemars Piguet comes out with and releases the Royal Oak. This is interesting in a lot of ways, actually, for innovation. This was sort of the beginning of the steel craze in terms of a steel sports watch. You know, the Royal Oak was an oversized, very specific looking steel sports watch, and of course Genta designed. And it kind of set a standard for sports watches. You know, they were to be a certain size, they were to have certain function. The Royal Oak in general had a fit and finish, a quality above anything else at the time. The Omega Speedmaster Professional is the watch that is attached to the greatest achievement of mankind, which is, of course, the moon landing. Omega went from taking a watch that was born on and lived on the racetrack and went straight to space. It was tested by NASA along with a total of 3 other pieces, I believe, in varying types of really brutal conditions, actually. Excessive heat, excessive shock, excessive G-force, and it passed with flying colors, whereas a few other brands that submitted pieces did not. In 1969, Zenith released the El Primero movement, the El Primero caliber, which was really probably decades ahead of its time. The biggest thing to be said about El Primero in general is that it had a really high beat rate, which made it extremely accurate. The beat rate is and was 36,000 beats per hour, which is 5 hertz. We'll see this movement, this legendary movement, 20 years later put in the Rolex Daytona. The fact that the El Primero movement was so sought after and robust and reliable that Rolex decided to modify and use it is a huge, in my opinion, compliment to Zenith. Breaking into the modern, this is where things get a little bit fun and strange for strange sake, and I think the perfect example of that is the HYT H1. This was announced released in 2012, and it used liquid to tell the time. They use a system of stepped and layered bellows in order to pump this liquid through a thin bar, and the liquid, mind you, is extremely high vis. It's a bright green or red or blue, depending on the model. And the time display, it's easily legible, it's very strange, and it's a very cool modern innovation, albeit a little bit, I'm sure, inconvenient to produce. It has a really cool effect on the wrist. To further this modern era of ingenuity and forward stepping for the watch industry, a brand like Resence emerges. The Resence Type 3, it's oil-filled. It's crownless. It looks like something that you would strap on your wrist and go on a spacewalk. The oil-filled aspect of it is really cool because it looks like you're looking at a neon display, some sort of digital LCD display, because the hands are extremely bright and they're legible from any angle. It looks very cool in person, and it's the type of piece that, unless you see one in person, you really won't get the appropriate appreciation. It sounds strange when you say, here's a watch, there's no crown, and it's full of oil. But when you handle it and see it executed in the metal, it's almost weirdly otherworldly. It's one of those things that really you should see in person. The watch that nobody asked for, but was strangely wanted. This is the Van Cleef and Arpels Midnight Planetarium, and it shows the planets rotating the sun in real time. Van Cleef and Arpels put the Earth and 5 other planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These are the 5 planets that are visible with the naked eye from Earth. And I think that's a very cool nod to, okay, these are the planets that you can see from Earth and may actually see move on the watch dial in your lifetime. The Bulgari Octo Finissimo Tourbillon Automatic. This was announced in 2018, and this represents a true apex, a true Everest of watchmaking. This is an ultra-thin automatic tourbillon movement, coming in at, I think it's 3.95 millimeters. It's the thinnest automatic tourbillon on the market, and this is something that Bulgari strives for often. They strive for high horology. They strive for moving forward, and I think this is something where we're seeing watchmakers, quite frankly, getting better, and they're getting better in a way that will be useful for the future of horology. Grubel Forsey GMT Earth it's the type of watch, when you see it in person, you actually have to take a step back. The GMT Earth has a flat crystal, and then to showcase this Earth, this 3-dimensional Earth, they dome the crystal. And it's not an afterthought, it's not added on, it's part of the crystal. Once you break into the movement, you can actually see true complexity. You can see things like a long, I believe it's a 72-hour power reserve. You can see a GMT function. There's a world timing function. The finishing's perfect everywhere. And I think that's something that watchmakers in the future will look for and will strive towards. So the classical innovations were created and tested and time-tried out of necessity. The modern complications are because we can. It's a true craft that is, quite frankly, very specific and strange, and that's part of what makes it so cool. And I think the more brands do things because they can, the further the watch industry will go and the more exciting releases we can look forward to. If there's anything that you'd like added to the list, let us know. It's always fun to me to talk about any type of past, present, or future innovation. These are just 10 examples of what I kind of thought were innovative models. There's a lot more. If you ever want to talk about them, you can reach me right here. I'd be happy to chat. I'm a nerd about this just like you are. I'm Armand. This has been my episode of The Classroom. If you guys enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.